fast could we expect China to move? Well, here's a calculation that I've done with some of my colleagues in Sydney, where we've actually said, well, what if all these renewable energy industries were to grow at 30% a year? Now, that's a very, very high rate of growth. Not quite as high as China's 100% a year for the last few years in wind, but still a very high rate of growth over a period of time. And using this concept of wages, looking at all of these sources of renewables, as well as energy efficiencies, we calculate that the world could actually get off fossil fuels by 2035. That's only 25 years ago, quarter of a century. So in a sense, that's where Eddie's oil and gas business could end by 2035. Now, it won't end there, of course, because the world won't be moving to alternative energy sources quite as rapidly as 30% a year growth. But that gives you a kind of benchmark figure. We want to see to what extent China is actually replicating that kind of industrial transformation. Richard Small, the Nobel laureate in the United States, put the matter very well when he described the transformation that is underway as a terawatt challenge. Terawatts, trillion watts. So he said back in the early 2000s, the world was generating energy, the total global energy machine. That's what I like to think of, the total global energy machine. And it was turning over in 2004 at the rate of about 14.5 terawatts, that's trillion watts. You can translate terawatts into million barrels of oil per day. So that was around 220 million barrels of oil per day. Is that the right number? And he said by 2050 we would have increased that the power rating of that energy machine up to fourfold to make it a 60 terawatt machine. And this time, instead of oil, coal and gas being the dominant sources of that energy, it would now be solar, wind and geothermal. Smalley didn't describe how we make the transition. He just said, this is going to be the starting point, this will be the end point by 2050, and you can see the two look very different. So the starting point for us and for looking at China is actually to see how that transition is accomplished. That was really the starting point for looking in detail at what is going on in China. So let's start to look at China in particular. And we look first of all at its coal consumption. You see the coal consumption going up. Actually, a small relative decline here when China enters the WTO, the World Trade Organization, and suddenly it's into exports of energy-intensive materials using steel, aluminium, and energy in a very, very big way. So a lot of people were looking at this picture of 2000 and saying, oh, isn't it remarkable? China's coal consumption is going down and its electricity consumption is going up. So China has effected a very interesting energy revolution. A few years further on, and that's the new picture. So things are moving up in China in terms of coal consumption and energy consumption and electricity production.